This is the Arenti OP1. It is a 4 megapixel HD camera that pans and tilts. And this is an outdoor Wi-Fi camera, but it's powered with a plug-in power adapter. So I was sent this to review for free. I've seen it listed with MSRP of $99. I've seen it for sale for $80, but I've also seen a 50% off coupon. So it's conceptually possible you could buy this camera for $40 on the street. They haven't paid me for this video, and my opinions remain my own. Alright, so in the box we have the camera, and it does have a protective plastic lens cover that you need to remove. And it has a mounting bracket, and this mounting bracket, there's a little notch at the top of the camera, or like an arrow at the top of the camera, and there's a lock-unlock here. So it looks like if you put this guy, and it looks like you have to feed the cable kind of through this hole in the back in most cases. So if you put this guy to the unlock position, push it in and then flip it to the lock position, it'll hold on there. And so that can be mounted, if you screw these to a ceiling, it can be mounted to like an under eave, or you can mount it to a wall, and then it has these little wing antennas that can be repositioned. So the end of this guy has a USB-C cable, and it includes a rather long USB-A to C cable here, and it also includes a USB-A power supply. And this says it is 5 volts at 1 amp. So it looks like any 5 volt 1 amp power supply will work to drive this guy. So this looks to be like an 11 to 12 foot long cable here. So that's kind of the distance you have between the camera and this power adapter. So they do include also this little rubber thing, which I believe is meant to kind of seal the cable connection in here. So I think it kind of is silicone that goes over the plug and the cable, and you kind of plug this guy in inside like that, and then you put this seal over it, and so that kind of grips it, and its idea there, I believe, is to keep water out of that connection. They include 4 screws and 4 little anchors for like masonry or drywall anchors. It only takes 3 screws if you're going into a ceiling, but you can use 4 screws if you're going into a wall. And then they include the instruction manual here. So in the manual, they show taking the power cable of the camera through the hole in the bracket and out the back. And I think if you do that, it might lock the camera to the bracket via that cable, because I'm not certain if this piece here is small enough to fit up through here. So if you screw the bracket in over the cable, it might kind of lock the camera to where the bracket is, unless somebody cuts the cable. Right, according to the specifications, this is 2560 by 1440, 95-degree field of view, has IR illuminators that can go up to 30 feet. It has a slot for a micro SD card for local storage up to 128 gigabytes. You're supposed to supply it with 5 volts 1 amp. It says the consumption is only up to 2.5 watts of power. And you will need an Android or iOS phone to install the Arenti application on. It supports 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, does A, B, G, and N. So there's a little rubber panel on the bottom here, and it says reset and trans flash. And so I believe that under here are the buttons. So they have a reset button, and there's a little trans flash slot in there. And to put this card in, it looks like the contacts go towards the lens. I'm going to put that in. It's in there pretty deep, and so you kind of have to get it down and then push it in with your fingernail, and it snaps in place. So this rubber plug is a pretty decent sized plug there, and that goes in. Feels like it's a pretty solid, secure connection there. They also say there's a speaker and microphone on this camera, so you can use it for two-way back and forth communications like an intercom. The red light came on, I heard a click. Now I have a white light that turned on for a brief second, and it looks like it's going through an initialization setup thing to basically figure out where the camera is pointing and move in all the directions. So you can see the pan tilt axes are moving around here. Now this camera does not have a zoom lens, an optical zoom lens. Alright, this is the Arenti app. So in the app we're pushing the plus button and we're saying add a device. And then we just have to pick outdoor camera. This looks like a picture of our camera here. It says power on the device. Please wait until the light turns red and blinks. So the red light is blinking. Hit next. And we have to reset the device. So we have to open this guy up, push and hold the reset button for about 5 seconds. It's kind of far down there, so I'm going to use this guy to reach it. All right.
Resetting. Please wait.
It made a beepity light. It said it was please waiting. We're waiting until the light turns red and blinks. All right, looks like it's going through the...
Up finish. Waiting to connect.
All right, looks like it's going through the initialization sequence again. But it's also blinking the red light, and it says the reset is finished and it's waiting to connect. So I'm going to hit the next button on the app. All right, I set up my Wi-Fi password and name, and now it's giving me a QR code. I show the QR code to the camera, and the camera will read the Wi-Fi name and password from the QR code and just connect to the network. So the light has turned blue and is flashing.
Successful connection.
All right, it says successful connection, and my phone is getting alert messages that motion was received from that camera serial number. So it says to put the phone and the camera at the place of installation, and it's going to check my Wi-Fi signal. It says my Wi-Fi signal is strong. There's an upside down picture of me in front of it, and so you can see motion from the camera. It says a new firmware version was found. Please update firmware to the latest version. I hit OK. We're in the firmware update screen. The current version is 5.5.4. It wants to go to 5.6.0. I hit version upgrade.
Upgrading. Don't power off.
And it says don't power off. And so it says this could take 3 to 5 minutes. There's the phone app says it's waiting to connect to the server. Okay, it says the firmware has been updated, so I believe we are all set and ready to use the camera. I'm getting messages about motion alerts every time I move in front of it, and you can see here's a live view of the camera. It is upside down because I just have it sitting on a table. If I push and hold the microphone, I think I can talk through the camera. I'm going to try talking through the camera. All right, that works. And if I turn up the volume on my phone, I believe we can hear through the camera as well. Although we get a feedback loop when that happens. So they have a nice feature here with the intercom sound. You can do the original sound, so it sounds like yourself. Or you can change it to clown. Hello, this is clown voice. Or, perhaps more useful, you can change it to uncle. And so the uncle voice sounds low and distorted. I'm assuming that's if you're female and don't want to use your own voice. So personally, I prefer the original sound voice, but it gives you some options there at least. Now they have pan tilt zoom where you can move this thing around. The speed is relatively quick. There's a little bit of lag between when you push the button and when you see the action happening, but it works pretty well. You can definitely go to where you want to be to see things. So they have a motion tracking mode. where if it sees motion, it will track and follow the motion around. So as I walk around the table here, it is tracking me. You have to turn that on. It's not on by default. So I have a micro SD card installed, and you can turn on all-day recording or just do event recording to the card. I'm assuming with all-day recording it just does a cycle and it starts erasing your old recordings as soon as it runs out of space. Now they do have a flip screen image option, so that if you wanted to have this guy just sitting on a table upside down, you can do that and the image will be correctly oriented. All right. I am going to unplug the camera. So when unplugged, or if the power goes out, it's immediately off. There's no backup battery inside. Alright, so this camera is doing a pretty good job here. It does a pretty good job detecting motion and kind of tracking it around. I think the biggest downside is that it is powered by a cable, and so I have limited places where I can install the camera where I have power available. And so I kind of had to put it behind this hanging thing, and there's things blocking its view a little bit. So one time an ant crawled down one of those wires and it detected the motion and kind of tracked the ant for a little bit. But other than the positioning issues due to the tying to a power supply, it's done a pretty good job.